Dean here, and I wanted to take a couple of minutes to just take you through some of the numbers that are being forecasted for our infection rates here in South Africa as it pertains to the coronavirus. Okay, our Minister of Health, Mr. Zweli Mkhize, came out recently with a statement that we could see infection rates of between 60 and 70% of our population before the end of this pandemic. To put that in perspective, in other countries like the US, they're also projecting very high infection rates of between 40 and 70% of their population. In Germany, they're saying that they could also see infection rates of up to 70%. So 60 to 70% is certainly a realistic forecast for the current pandemic as it pertains to South Africa. Okay, but for those that are maybe a bit skeptical about that number, I'm going to show you some numbers on an infection rate of only 30%. So essentially half of the current forecasted rate, and you'll still see the devastating effects that it has on our population and the critical impact that it's going to have on our healthcare system. Okay, so let's dive in. Currently, we're sitting with a population in South Africa of between 58 million and 59 million. But let's just, for sake of this example, let's work on 58 million. Okay? So we've got 58 million people living in South Africa. If 30% of our population get infected with corona, that's going to result in a total of 17.4 million people that will be infected with COVID-19. Okay? What we're seeing from statistics across the world, that between 15 and 20% of people who get infected need to be hospitalized. Okay? So if we take that number and we multiply it by 15%, we get 2.61 million people that are going to need hospitalization. Okay, currently in South Africa, we only have 100 to 120,000 hospital beds. This is obviously the first point of how unprepared we are for this pandemic. Okay, going on from that, of the people that get infected with coronavirus, generally about 5% of them need critical care. Okay, so if we take 5% of 17.4 million, okay, so 5%, we get 870,000 people that need critical care. Currently, we only have about 7,000 critical care beds in South Africa, and of those 7,000, only 3,000 are available across the private and public sectors. Okay, if you take those two numbers, okay, so 3,000 available beds with 870,000 people that need critical care, you get a ratio of 1 to 290. Meaning that 1 out of 290 people can essentially have a bed. Okay. Now I know that we're not going to see 870,000 people all rushing into critical care all at once. So if we had to spread that out over 6 months, right, which I feel is a best case scenario, you're still looking at a ratio of 1 to 48 people. Now what that means is that only 1 out of 48 people are going to be able to receive a life-saving critical care, okay? While the other 47 people are going to not be, there's essentially not going to be the capacity or the resources to provide them with that care, okay? This is currently what is being experienced in Italy at the moment, where doctors are now having to decide on who gets a ventilator or who gets that critical care and who doesn't, okay? So I want to encourage every single one of you to do your part, okay? Do your part to help flatten the curve, right? Because the one thing that we haven't touched on here is the death rate. Now, we're seeing a death rate of between 0.5% and 2% of all people infected. That translated, these are our numbers, that translated is between 87,000 people and 348,000 deaths that are forecasted on a 30% infection rate. Now, as I said before, our actual forecasted infection rate is 60 to 70%. Okay, so these numbers, if these are the actual infected rates, we're going to see double these numbers. Okay, so as I said, I want to encourage every single one of you to do your part to help flatten the curve. Okay, our daily actions can have a massive impact on trying to avoid this worst case scenario. So social distancing, self-quarantine, and taking these things seriously is what we really need to do, right? It's the impact that we can have to help save thousands of South African lives. So let me know in the comments what you're currently doing in your self-quarantine to keep yourself busy, to keep yourself active, to keep yourself motivated and creative. And let's share this knowledge, let's share these experiences so that we can help each other navigate this difficult time. And also let me know if this video was helpful. Ciao for now.